Hey everyone, and welcome to my updated and refined Trundle top lane tier list. In this video, I will tell you my experiences about all Trundle's matchups in the top lane, one category at a time. To give you a little bit of a context, I am a high emerald, low diamond Trundle top one trick. I have 1.5 million mastery on the champion and easily over 1,000 games. This matchup tier list is based on my experiences during the time I've played Trundle. So let's start with the good bans tier. The champions I put in this tier are Jayce, Teemo and Malphite. These champions are really good bans if you want to play Trundle top lane. However, the champion that I recommend you to ban out of all of these three is Jayce. Jayce's E basically invalidates Trundle completely. The moment Jayce uses Counter-Strike, he basically becomes immortal for 2.5 seconds. You cannot hit him because all your damage comes from auto attacks. The only damage you can deal to Jayce during this time is with your ultimate. Compared to Teemo and Malphite, at least you can fight them, but Jayce, you just cannot compete with him. He has way more scaling than you do, he has way more dueling potential, he has way more carry potential. Jayce is basically just made to counter Trundle. He can very easily dictate trades by just jumping away, and then he has his Counter-Strike. Enough said. Then there's Teemo. Teemo is basically like Jayce, but a little bit easier. However, because Trundle is really an immobile champion and doesn't have any dashes or mobility other than his W, Teemo, being a ranged champion, is basically a natural counter to you. He can blind you, it's very difficult for anyone to gank Teemo because of his mushrooms, he can hide in a bush to troll you, and yeah, it's just really difficult. Then we have Malphite. Now, depending on how the Malphite plays and how cocky they are, you can sometimes win and, get a kill or two, but Malphite is just a different kind of a beast. He's a natural counter to champions that have AD damage, and Trundle is one of them. He can slow you movement speed, he can slow you attack speed, and in addition to this, he can also provide great ganks for his jungler by using his ultimate. He can also use his ultimate to just escape. If he thinks that he's not gonna win a fight, he will just use his ultimate and escape. The next tier that we're gonna talk about is the difficult tier. The reason why a lot of these champions are here and not in the good bans tier is because Jayce is just such a good high value ban. In my opinion, it's not worth it to ban any other champion than Jayce ever, but your experiences might be different. The first one that you have on this list is Kennen. Kennen is a ranged champion, like many of the other champions I've put on this list. Akshan, Quinn, Vayne, Varus, and Kalista all have tools to just completely bully you, keep you under your tower, secure priority for their own team, while making you completely useless and irrelevant. If you want to be realistic, then there's just not a lot you can do as Trundle against these champions. However, the reason why I put these champions into difficult tier is because all ranged top laners are usually just wanting to push you in. They want to push you in and keep you under your tower. This opens up some opportunities for your jungler to gank, and you are able to help quite well with your pillar. For example, Akshan. You can cancel Akshan's E, where he uses his rope to fly away with your pillar if you time it well. Your pillar can also work as a tool to help your jungler land their crowd control on the enemy top laner. Now for champion specific advice. Kennen. With Kennen, you mainly want to use your pillar to just try and keep him away from escaping and help you jungler gank. As I said, there's not much you can do against ranged top laners other than, you know, taking second wind and Doran shield and try to farm it out. Grab Doran shield and grab call and just try to farm it out and play the macro game after the laning phase ends. With Akshan, as I already said, you can cancel his rope swing with your pillar. When it comes to Quinn, he can blind you with his kick. And now, if the Quinn is experienced, they will just hold on to their blind. However, if you are against the Quinn that just spams their abilities on you, you can try to approach with W and see if they use their blind on you. After they have used their blind, you can try to back away a little bit and then use your pillar and try to chase them. The key against playing against Quinn is that you wanna engage with W and try to make them use their blind. Then, once they've used their blind and you've used your W, you use your pillar to follow it up. Vayne. Vayne is a really difficult matchup, as are all ranged top laners. So the game plan with Vayne is to just let her push into you and farm under your tower. You can use pillar to try to get some ganks with your jungler, and you know, if you can blow Vayne's ghost or flash or ultimate by just using W and pillar, then you are already, you know, in a good spot. You know, you've done your part and then you just need to wait for ganks, basically. After the laning phase ends, you just want to do your job as Trundle usually does. You know, you want to go to side lane and split and get some towers. And yeah, if Vayne is stronger than you, then you might want to be careful and, you know, you don't want to go anywhere near the enemy towers if you don't see Vayne anywhere on the map. Getting caught out is the worst thing that can happen if the Vayne has ultimate and ghost, and if they're hiding in a bush and they catch you off guard, then they can very easily just kill you. Varus. So Varus is basically like any other ranged top laner, and yeah, the tips that I said about Vayne and Quinn and Akshan and Kennen all apply, and you'd want to use the same strategies against Varus. Kalista. Kalista, like all the other ranged top laners, is the same way. You want them to push you in and then you farm your minions under the tower. If you are lucky and the enemy overextends or messes up their positioning while harassing you under tower, you can try to place a pillar to lock them in while they're taking damage from your tower. This usually forces a flash and then can later result in them getting ganked. Akali. Akali is a very difficult matchup. She basically bullies all the bruisers, at least most of them in top lane. You can try to engage on her if you see that she uses her shroud to just gain energy. Usually Akalis like to spare their shroud to escape ganks or to disengage. However, if they use it very carelessly when they're pushing you in, then you might have a chance to go and engage on her. However, many Akalis don't use their shroud this way. They use it very carefully, and they're very careful about getting ganked. But there is something you can do in a very specific situation. Akalis like to sometimes take Ignite and TP. This means that if they overextend level 1, and if they are playing a little bit cocky, then you can try and just flash on top of them level 1. And because they don't have flash in this situation, they usually end up on really low HP and they have to use teleport to get back to lane, or then you just straight up kill them. You can later on try to purchase items that give you magic resistance, such as Maw or Wit's End. Then you just want to do your thing, you know, you're Trundle, you want to go in the side lane and, you know, get those towers. And, yeah. Cassiopeia. So, she is very immobile, like Akali. And, you know, if she's being a little bit cocky level 1, you can try to kill her. Because, you know, she really has no mobility at all. Except for her Q, which gives her a slight movement speed. But most Cassiopeias I've played against, they start with E. And yeah, level 1 is basically the only opportunity that you have against good Cassiopeias. After that, you are going to get pushed in and bullied, and you just want to farm it out and, you know, get out of the laning phase and just split push. Yone. So, Yone is a little bit of a tricky one. You can beat him, but only if you have really good spacing. You need to dodge his Qs, and when he uses his E, when he, you know, goes to his spirit form, detaches from his body and just flies around like that, you don't want to chase him. That's what he wants. And, you know, when Yone presses E, he wants you to chase him. He wants you to chase him so he can kite you around and then just eventually kill you. But if he uses E, you just want to stand around the place where he activated it and wait for him to return to his body. Make sure to also block his ultimate. If you stand in Yone's ultimate, when he uses it, you know, if you stand in front of him, it's going to shorten the distance, and, you know, instead of flying half a screen away, he's going to disappear behind you. Heimerdinger. So, Heimerdinger is, yeah, yet again, another ranged top laner. Very difficult to gank and very difficult to engage on. Because of Trundle's nature, you know, Trundle is a kind of an all-in champion. You very often will just die if you try to engage on Heimerdinger while he has his turrets up. So, yeah. Buy Darius shield, buy coal, and try to farm it out and get out of the laning phase as quickly as you can. You should also pay special attention to his grenade. If Heimerdinger throws his grenade, he can very easily combo it and kill you. He can also use the grenade to set up ganks for his jungler, so, you know, if you are low HP and you don't know if you're getting dived or not, it might just be worth it to flash the grenade if you're in a tough spot. And yeah, next up we have the enemy favored but winnable tier, where this tier is basically all the champions that have the advantage over you, but if you play well, you have a decent chance of winning. The first champion that we have here is Camille. With Camille, you want her to use her passive on you, where if Camille auto-attacks, she gains a shield. So you want her to auto-attack you once to proc the shield that she has from her passive, and then once you've done that, you can try to look and fight her after the shield has expired. You can also cancel Camille's E, where she basically just flies away with you pillar, and it's very easy to do. It's more consistent to do than Akshan's E, and this very often leaves the Camille in a spot where you can kill her, damage her so much that she's forced to leave the lane, or, then, you can use that trick to just, get easy ganks for your jungler, because, you're preventing Camille from escaping. However, the reason why Camille is still in this tier instead of, skill check or Trundle favored or farm lane is because very often Camille just outscales you. Once she gets Trinity Force and Ravenous, she is basically really strong, and she will most of the times just beat you up in the side lane. So you gotta play for the team, you wanna make some picks with your pillar, and, team fight. If you do that better than she does, then, you have a good chance of winning the game. Next up, we have Aatrox. And now Aatrox can be a difficult matchup, or it can be a farm lane. But the reason why I put Aatrox here is because you can, most of the time, still win. You have your pillar, you have your W, and you basically want Aatrox to waste his W and waste his E, the dash and, the hook thing, that he uses to pull you. So you want him to waste those two abilities, and then you can look to fight him. The reason why he is here and why the matchup is favored for Aatrox is because he can very easily poke you. He can just use Q1, Q2, and then, dash away and repeat that, and then kill you if you overextend. If you take Ignite into this matchup, it increases your chances of, being able to kill him. Aatrox is one of those champions that you can kind of surprise if you flash, use your ultimate, use Ignite, do auto Q auto, and, use your Tiamat. Or if you build in Trinity Force first, you will have the burst of Shen. If you build in Shen, Aatrox is one of those champions that you will be able to surprise and, burst down if he is on low enough HP. Darius. So Darius is basically a kind of a 50-50 lane. If the Darius is really good, and, if they know what they're doing, they will start W, and, depending on if you have Ignite or not, you can try to fight him. But if he gets 5 stacks on you, you are probably going to die. So you kind of want to edge him a little bit, give him 4 stacks or 3, then you want to disengage and wait for the stacks to expire, and, then you want to go on him. You can take short trades at first, and then, if you're feeling confident, if he's, being poked down a little bit by your autos and your Qs, you can try to fight him. It's a pretty even matchup in the end, but Darius has a little bit more of like a explosive power in his kit, in my opinion. You can also use your pillar really well against Darius, so, if you're fighting against him and you need to disengage, you can place a pillar between you and him and just go away. If he flashes, then you can just match his flash, and, that's that. And then you just farm out and, get out of the laning phase and split push. Gnar. So Gnar is one of those neutralizer champions, to be honest. But you can win if the Gnar player is not comfortable with their champion. If you're playing for level 1, then, you can very often force out a flash, if you flash, you know, chances are that the Gnar has to flash as well. You can also cancel Gnar's hop, his E ability where he hops away with your pillar. It's a little bit difficult to do, and you know, it's a lot of prediction and, you know, just waiting for the right moment kind of a thing. But if you can cancel his jump consistently with your pillar, then yeah, it's pretty easy ganks. But overall, Gnar is basically just a better champion than you are. Gnar can split push a little bit better, and you know, he has so much more better team fighting than Trundle. It's not even fair. So, you know, when you're facing against a Gnar, you should try to look for early kills and then, you know, farm it out, play for your team, and try to prevent Gnar from getting on top of your ADC and your backline when you're team fighting. Jayce. So Jayce can be an easy matchup if they don't know what they're doing. If they take Conqueror or Electrocute, it can be very easy for you to, you know, just get on top of the Jayce and kill them. You use W, and then, you know, if they knock you away with their hammer, then yeah, that's when you use your pillar and you block them from getting away, and you can get some damage in that way. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Jayce is a really difficult matchup, and I think he could even be in the difficult tier in this tier list. But the thing that makes him be in the enemy favored but winnable matchup is because so many Jayce players are not that great, to be honest, and you know, the ease of execution is on you. So, you know, the Jayce player has to play pretty much perfect, whereas you can afford a couple of mistakes and still come out on top if your fundamentals are better. If Jayce takes Phase Rush, then you basically just want to farm it out. You don't even want to look to fight with him, just go for the minions and, you know, farm it out and play the split pushing game. If he takes Phase Rush, then chances are that you are just never going to get on top of him, unless the Jayce player completely messes up their combo, or if they overextend, or if they're just not that great at Jayce. Pantheon. So Pantheon is a champion that wants to poke you with Qs, and then what happens very often if you are facing against the Pantheon is that, you know, they will poke you with Q, and then they will look to dive you with their jungler. So taking Doran's Shield is really advised here, as is Second Wind. You can also take Bone Plating, but, you know, a Second Wind gives a little bit more value when it's a poke matchup. You can also cancel Pantheon's ultimate with your pillar, which is really nice if he tries to escape, or if he is trying to look for a gank in mid lane. You should try and save your pillar so that, you know, if he tries to use his ultimate, you can just use pillar and cancel him. Later on, once you get to items, you can try to fight him. If he overextends, you can use W, see what he does. If he stuns you, then you can follow it up with the pillar, and chances are that at that point he has to either flash away or he's just gonna get ran down by you if he's, you know, all the way near your tower. Garen. So Garen, the lane can very easily turn into a farm lane with him, which is what you want to happen. And yeah, well, I mean, in an ideal situation, what you want to happen is that you'll just completely smash him, right? But that's not very easily done because, you know, you have a lot of sustain. You're Trundle. But Garen has even more sustain. And especially if Garen takes Phase Rush, you know, it's just very difficult for you to control the lane, and Garen can just trade with you, sustain the HP back, and, you know, he has a lot of kill threat too if he takes Ignite. And, you know, he's gonna silence you, he's gonna spin on you, he's gonna ignite you, and then he's gonna use his ultimate, and you're probably gonna die. So yeah, it is winnable, but it's definitely Garen favored. Gwen. So Gwen is a pretty funny matchup actually. If you can kite around her with your W and just dodge her ultimate, then you win. And you can also very easily dodge her Qs. And yeah, if you dodge her Qs and you dodge her ultimate, you win. If you let her poke you too much, then you lose. That's basically the entire matchup. If you're struggling, you can also buy items that give you magic resistance, like Maw, Witch Sand. You can also get magic resistance boots. But yeah, it depends on the game as well. You know, like what is the rest of the team looking like. I would not get magic resistance boots just for Gwen. Shen. So Shen is very, very difficult. The reason why I didn't put him in the difficult tier, though, is because you can still fight against him. If the Shen player wastes their taunt, where, you know, they dash and taunt you, if they waste that, if they miss that, then, you know, you have a good chance of fighting against him. But, you know, the early game especially, it can feel really oppressive because, you know, Shen can block autos, and, you know, he has really powerful auto attacks. His empowered auto attacks hurt a lot. So, you know, you really want to respect Shen in the early game, especially if they take Ignite. And yeah, then you just want to wait for him to use his abilities, and you want to try to fight him. Very often, though, you cannot kill him, and the best thing you can do is just block his ultimate with your pillar. When he tries to teleport away with his ultimate to a fight, you just pillar on top of him and his ultimate gets cancelled. You kinda want to keep an eye on that though, because sometimes the Shen player might be using their ultimate at a bad time. Meaning that, you know, if their teleport goes through, they'll just get killed, you know, because it was a mistake to try to use their ultimate in the first place to join the fight. So, you know, you kind of want to look at the fight yourself and see if you should cancel Shen's teleport or not, if you have the chance. Volibear. So, Volibear is a difficult matchup, but still winnable. You win level 1, but basically all the levels after that, Volibear basically has control of the lane. He can very easily dictate fights with his Q, E, and then his W. He can just stun you and guarantee the E, and yeah, it's gonna be really awkward, and it can feel really oppressive if you are letting him trade with you all the time. Volibear players, being what they are though, you can very often try to go for outplays when they tower dive you, you know, save your ultimate for the tower dives and try to block him from getting away with your pillar. You can usually get a kill or two like that if they're careless. Rumble. So, you know, with Rumble, you want to get some magic resistance items like Maw, maybe, you know, the magic resistance boot, stuff like that. And you want to play for, you know, trying to get him under your tower, you know. Try to make him think that he can dive you, and then, you know, you use your ultimate. You try to get him onto your tower with your pillar, and yeah, that's that. Very difficult matchup again, but you can definitely farm this out and, you know, split push and still win if you are patient enough. Rengar. So Rengar is a difficult matchup again. It depends a lot on how good the Rengar is, and yeah, if the Rengar is not that great, then you can kill him level 1 most of the time. And yeah, you want to stay away from the bushes, and you know, if you are stronger than him, then, you know, you want to stand in the bushes and, you know, prevent him from getting in them. So yeah, that's how you play the lane. And then, you know, later in the game you just want to split push and, you know, protect your carries from him. Wukong. Wukong is difficult because he can just combo you and escape very easily. He can do that over and over again, so the only chance that you have of really killing him is just going in an all-in fight against him and yeah, just auto Q auto, do that, and yeah. You should also be mindful of when Wukong builds his first item. If he builds Eclipse as his first item, then he will get a huge boost in damage, and you know, you should really think about whether you should engage in a fight with him or not. But yeah, when he engages on you and when he goes for trades, you just want to trade back with auto Q auto, and then try to look for a kill angle with your ultimate, you know, just go in, all in, and having Ignite definitely helps you here. Urgot. So Urgot, you have a good chance of killing him level 1. Even if they take Ignite and you don't, you have a pretty good chance of killing them. Especially if you flash their E, if they use their E really awkwardly, you know, if they, you know, E forward towards you tower, then it doesn't really matter if they flash away after that, because they're so overextended in the lane anyways because of their E that, you know, they missed. Later on, though, it can be really difficult to deal with Urgot because, you know, he scales quite well and he has pretty good ganks, and yeah, he can just beat you up with his ultimate. So what you want to do is just, you know, look for an early kill, you know, when you're level 1, level 2 maybe, and just farm it out after that and try to out-macro them. Sejuani. So Sejuani is a champion that you don't see as often in top lane, but I've definitely faced against her a couple of times, and when I have, it's been pretty miserable. She can kite you really well, she can stun you, she has fantastic gank setup, so, you know, it can feel really oppressive, especially if she freezes the lane. So yeah, she probably could fit in the difficult tier, but I put her here because, you know, she is a tank, and, you know, if the game progresses to a state where both teams are kind of at a standstill, you will have the advantage because of your ultimate. So, you know, you just ult her in team fights and, you know, watch as she melts when, you know, your team just takes her out. She's not gonna have any resistances. Vladimir. So Vladimir can be really obnoxious, but, you know, they have a tendency of pushing the lane. Vladimirs don't really freeze that often, and yeah, because of this, you can very often try to get a kill with ultimate ignite and, you know, just kill him like that. It's a kind of a limit testing fight, you know. You want to kind of limit test, and, you know, you want to skill check the Vladimir, basically see if they know the limits of their champion better than you do, and if you know your limits better than they do, you will win. So yeah, next up we have the skill check tier, and these champions I put here because you know, when it comes to Trundle, and, you know, Trundle dealing with these champions, it very often is just a skill check, or more so like a limit test, you know. It's kind of what I talked about with Vladimir just previously. And with these champions, whoever knows their limits the best wins. And that's how it kind of goes. So, you know, first off, we have Warwick here. And Warwick is basically Trundle, but a little bit different. I don't think there's much to really say about this matchup, other than, you know, try to dodge his R if you are in a team fight. Try to block Warwick from using his R on your teammates by moving in front of your teammates. You know, you want to take the bullet for the team. And, you know, when Warwick uses his fear, you want to kind of kite it out so you don't get feared. This can be crucial, especially in the laning phase. Sometimes, you know, if you can dodge his fear, then, you know, that can be the difference between you getting the kill on Warwick or not. And yeah, whoever knows their limits the best wins this matchup. And, you know, it's very easy after that. I think if you can secure like maybe 1 or 2 kills on Warwick, you can buy Bramble, then, you know, it's just your usual build, and yeah, it will be kind of a stomp after that. So yeah, then we have Riven. So Riven, you can try to fight her level 1, and I believe that the best thing you can do against Riven is to start with Q, because if you use Q on her right at the beginning when she uses her combo, that will mean that, you know, she will have reduced attack damage for her entire combo, and this is what lets you win against her level 1, even if you tank her entire combo, and even if she executes it correctly. If you use Q right at the beginning before she can even touch you, then you will come out on top. This is especially the case if you have Ignite. However, you should not follow up, you know, if she flashes away, you should not flash away. Riven is still a really mobile champion, and, you know, she has the tools to just get away and make sure that you are not going to be on top of her unless she wants to. Olaf. So Olaf is kind of like Warwick, and Olaf is kind of like Trundle too. Very similar champions. So with Olaf, you kind of just want to dodge his axes and make sure that when you're fighting him, he doesn't get the chance to pick up his axes too often. If Olaf gets to pick up his axes, it refreshes the cooldown, you know, of that ability that lets him throw him. So, you know, you just kind of want to make sure that he doesn't pick up the axes too often, and yeah, then you use ultimate, and you just auto, and, you know, you have an auto attack battle to death. That's it, basically. Trundle versus Olaf is also a really volatile matchup, so yeah, whoever wins this one, yeah, basically has control of the wave for the rest of the game. That's how it goes. If I was Trundle and I was playing against the Olaf, I would try to freeze the wave, and, you know, if I get some early kills, and then, you know, recall for a Tiamat, and yeah, then I would look to secure Prio and take Void Grubs with my jungler. Yasuo. So yeah, I put Yasuo here because he's a little bit of a special case. There are some crackheads that are really good at Yasuo, and, you know, I'm just gonna say that, you know, if you are against the Yasuo, you can beat him, but if the Yasuo player is like insane, if they're like really good, then yeah, it can go either way. Not much to say about this other than, you know, try to dodge his Qs, his sword pokes, and try to dodge his knockup when he does the Q3, the tornado that lets him combo it into his ultimate. Try to dodge that, try to dodge his Qs, and yeah. Gangplank. So Gangplank is one of those funny matchups again. The one who breaks the barrels first wins, basically. There's a lot of mind games that you can do, and Trundle has a pretty good time breaking his barrels because, you know, you can auto attack and Q, or Q and auto attack like that, and, you know, it takes 2 HP away from his barrels. So, you know, it can mess up some Gangplank players. It's ultimately a skill check, and, you know, Gangplank has a lot of skill expression like that. So yeah, the matchup can go either way, really. As for Fiora, I feel like, you know, it's the same with all of these champions in this tier. It's a skill check, and yeah, Trundle has the ease of execution. It goes without saying that he does. And with Fiora, the tips that I can give you are that, you know, if Fiora tries to use ultimate on you, you just wanna stay close to a wall so that she can't proc the last vital on you. You just wanna stay close to a wall and cock block her from ever proccing the last vital on you. That way you should win basically every time against her, unless you overextend in the fight. The early game against Fiora is also pretty nice, and I feel like very often, you know, Fiora players, they try to go for the outplays, you know, even in situations where it's just not realistic. And when you're playing as Trundle, you can very often get some nice early kills against Fiora. Next up, we have the farm lane tier. All the champions that I've put in this tier are just matchups where you cannot really kill them and they cannot really kill you, unless the other player is just a lot better than the other. And first of all, we have a Gragas here, and Gragas is basically the neutralizer champion. So, you know, when you're playing against a Gragas, you cannot really kill him. He can't really kill you. And, you know, as long as you keep the trades short and you don't overextend, as long as you track the jungler well enough and, you know, you place wards, you should not die in this lane. And it's basically just a free ticket to the macro game, and, you know, you just want to buy cool, you want to farm it out, you want to split push. Not much else to say. Definitely a lot of outplay potential if the Gragas messes up their combo, if they miss anything. And what ends up happening very often in Trundle versus Gragas matchups is that, you know, they overextend. And, you know, if they are pushing you into tower, they very often take tower aggro, and you can punish them by placing a good pillar. And yeah, then, you know, they'll take tower aggro, and they probably have to flash away from there if they're, you know, in a really bad spot. Yeah. But, as I said, you are probably not going to be able to kill a Gragas in most situations, unless they are really cocky and they think they can kill you when they actually cannot. In which case, you should save your ultimate for, you know, the moments when, you know, he's pushing you into a tower and, you know, you're there trying to hang on. You should save your ultimate and save your pillar for the tower dives. Then the next one on the list is Kled, and Kled is basically another farm lane. There is just no way you are going to be able to kill a Kled unless they miserably outplay themselves. And yeah, you have a nice gank setup though, but Kled is a little bit of a risky lane in that, you know, if you give him a couple of kills, he can snowball the game very easily. So I just kind of recommend farming out this lane. He also has grievous wounds in his kit, so yeah, it's not like, you know, you're going to have an easy matchup when facing Kled. Then we have Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser is an okay matchup in that you can farm it out very easily. However, if they decide to freeze, then it's kind of awkward and they can very easily kill you, especially if they have Ignite. And if they land their abilities on you, Mordekaiser can just press ultimate and lock you in. And yeah, if that happens, you're kind of messed up. But if you can keep the lane in a kind of a neutralized state, and if you can manage the waves really well, Mordekaiser is ultimately a farm lane. You should just look to farm and split push, play for your team, and try to team fight better than the Mordekaiser does. There is one trick you can do against Mordekaiser though, and that is when he uses his ultimate. Because Trundle's ultimate steals a target's stats. And, you know, with the way how Mordekaiser's ultimate works the same way, that, you know, he steals a percentage of the enemy's stats when he uses his ultimate, you basically want to ult Mordekaiser after he uses his ult on you. Because that way you are stealing his base stats, and you are also taking back the stolen stats that he took from you by ulting you. Now, let's go to K'Sante. So, K'Sante is another neutralizer champion. It can feel really impressive, and all I can really say for this matchup is that try to stay away from walls. If you stay close to walls, then chances are that he is trying to look for an ultimate and, you know, maybe just solo kill you or kill you with their jungler. So yeah. Stay away from walls and farm it out with Teemo and Cole. And then we have Ryze. So Ryze is basically just another ranged top laner, and there's not a lot that Trundle can really do about him. So yeah, I don't really have any tips specific to the Ryze matchup here. You should just play it as if Ryze was any other ranged top laner. All the fundamental skills still apply, but yeah, just farm it out and split push. Swain. So Swain, you can definitely cock and ball torture Swain if you get him caught out in the early game a couple of times. And, you know, you can try to set up a freeze, and he cannot really do anything. He has basically no mobility if he doesn't take Ghost, and yeah, the only way he can stop you is with a W or an E. You can try to take Ignite against Swain, but honestly, you are probably not going to kill him anyways. When he hits 6 and he gets his ultimate, he has so much sustain when you're standing in his ultimate that you know, having Ignite barely matters. You cannot kill him if he's 100% HP, which he will be for most of the time that he spends in his laning phase because of the nature of melee versus ranged in the top lane. There's just no way for you to really get close to him, and if you do, he's going to pop his ultimate. It's just kind of a standstill. So yeah, another farm lane. Then there's Nasus. Now, if you are lucky, you can kill Nasus a couple of times in the early game, and you can set up a freeze after that, and if the enemy jungle doesn't help Nasus, then he is kind of cooked. He cannot really do anything, and you have basically won the lane. However, if the Nasus is good, then, you know, he's not going to let you kill him, he's not going to let you get close to him, he's going to play very patient, in which case you should just go for a 3-wave crash and, you know, yeah, just play out the lane like that. You know, it very easily turns into a farm lane where you cannot kill him and he cannot kill you. Yorick. So Yorick is basically the same. You can't kill him and he can't kill you. Yeah, that's it. I feel like he's a little bit better at split pushing than Trundle, and if Yorick gets a little bit of a lead in the laning phase, then that will definitely show later on in the game, and he will feel really oppressive. So your kind of a mission in this game, if it turns into that, is to just hold him back, get a Tiamat, and, you know, prevent him from taking towers. Skarner. So Skarner is, yeah, it can feel really oppressive. And, you know, if the Skarner play is good, he has really good gank setup with his jungler, and you are going to be in a little bit of a trouble if you don't respect that. But yeah, there's not much you can really do about it. The kind of a charge where, you know, Skarner charges at you, and, you know, the same ability that he can use to go through walls, you can block that with a pillar, So you should use that to your advantage if you can. And yeah, that's the only thing that I have about Skarner. Sion. Sion is a matchup where you just cannot really kill him unless he is playing the inting Sion playstyle. But if the Sion is going for, you know, a standard game, you know, tank Sion, whatever, and, you know, if they don't feel like inting, then you cannot really kill them. You know, Sion has a lot of abilities that he can use to just kite you and, you know, keep you away. And yeah, there's not much you can do. The best thing you can do against Sion is if he uses his ultimate, you can block that with a pillar. That comes in really handy sometimes when there's a team fight happening and, you know, he's ulting right into your team, but, you know, then you get a clutch pillar and you block him from ulting you into your team with a pillar. So there's that. But other than that, nothing else really. Just the farm lane. Tryndamere. So Tryndamere is basically like Trundle, but not really. You just farm, and yeah. You have to be careful of him though, because, you know, if you do mess up and if you end up giving him kills, he can very easily turn into Menace, and you are going to be in trouble if there's a fed Tryndamere on the enemy team. So you just want to farm it out, and, you know, if the Tryndamere is cocky and they want to go for tower dives, save your ultimate, save your pillar, and yeah. Just farm it out and, you know, play for the macro game. You are a little bit better than Tryndamere at team fighting, so there's that. And yeah, I feel like you should run teleport into him, because he's going to be split pushing most of the time. What you want to do as Trundle is that you want to fight with your team, and then, you know, when he's pushing in for a tower, you just TP to the tower that he's pushing for, and you defend that, and yeah, that's what you want to do against Tryndamere. Ornn. So Ornn is basically like Gragas, and yeah, there's not much you can do. You can cancel his ultimate with your pillar when he goes for the recast. So yeah, if you place a good pillar, you can cancel that. But other than that, there's not much else to Ornn. It's just another farm lane. You want to farm it out. You want to split push. Singed. So if you're playing against the Singed, what I recommend you to do is that you stand at your inhibitor tower and you wait for your wave to come to you. And then you just kind of want to escort your wave to the lane, you know, where the you wave and the enemy wave meet up. And why you want to do this is because, you know, very, very often Singed players, they try to proxy you. So they go to the enemy jungle and, you know, they go all the way to inhibitor tower and grab the wave there. And, you know, they want to proxy you. But you can prevent that if you're standing there and if you escort the wave to the lane yourself. So that's everything I have about Singed, basically. Not much else. Then you just want to make sure that you show up to all the team fights. You split push, and yeah, you can even kill him a couple of times if he gets a little bit silly. Udyr, really not much to say about this matchup. He is just a Giga Chad, and you cannot ever kill him. If the Udyr is kind of bad, then you can, but I will tell you, you should not expect to kill an Udyr in the lane. It's just, you know, an AFK farm, and then you want to play the macro game. Not much you can do as Trundle. Then there's Karma. Karma can be very oppressive, but with the amount of sustain that you have, especially if you take Ravenous Hydra first, then it should not be an issue to just out-sustain Karma's poke. And yeah, you just want to farm it out and, you know, help you jungler, you know, if they're coming in for a gank, you know, to save you pillar for the ganks. Zilean. So I've faced Zilean a couple of times, and honestly, yeah, You just want to farm it out. The Zillion doesn't really have any pressure unless they go full AP or something. But yeah, I would just farm it out. And yeah, there's been a couple of times too when I've been against the Jarvan. And if you are playing Trundle against the Jarvan, then yeah, it's another farm lane. Not much you can do. You can cancel Jarvan's QE with your pillar, but the timing is a little bit tight on that, so you can't really do it consistently. Then we have the Trundle favored tier, and these matchups are basically the ones that if you see them in Champion Select, you can be pretty sure that you'll have a good game. Starting off with Mundo. Mundo is very weak in the early game and you can abuse that fact. Later on, when the game progresses, I recommend that you build Ravenous into Blade of the Ruined King or Trinity Force, and then Mortal Reminder third. You can also get the Executioner's Calling a little bit earlier and just let it sit in your inventory. Mundo is a pretty easy matchup because he's a tank, and yeah, Trundle does wonders against tanks, so pretty easy. Not much else to say about him. The matchup has a lot of limit testing too, and yeah, you kind of want to bait the Mundo into attacking you by staying low HP and then turning the fight with ultimate and ignite. Next up we have Tahm Kench, and the reason why I put him so low on this tier list and why he is so easy in my opinion is because you can block his ability, the Abyssal Dive, which I think is his W. And yeah, you can block that ability with your pillar, which I think is one of the most busted interactions in the entire game. You don't even need to be that fast or precise, you just need to place the pillar, you know, on top of him before he finishes up his dive, and it's going to get cancelled. This makes up for very easy jungle ganks, and very often just leads into a kill, because many Tahm Kench players don't play accordingly to the fact that, you know, Trundle can cancel his dive. They don't really think about that. So usually doing that catches them by surprise, and you can just kill them with your jungler. Zac. So Zac is a pretty easy matchup. It can be a little bit of a farm lane where you can't really kill him and he can't really kill you, but what makes him really easy is that you can cancel his E where he does the jump with your pillar, and yeah, that is pretty busted and it's really powerful in lane, but also outside the lane, you know, when the games go on and, you know, team fighting starts to happen. If you can cancel Jag's E in team fights, that can very often be something that turns the entire game around. Cho'Gath. So Cho'Gath is immobile. He doesn't have any dashes, not any movement abilities, and he is a tank. And you are Trundle. You have the W, you have your pillar. It is very easy to dodge his skill shots. And yeah, you basically have the advantage over Cho'Gath in every point in the game. Yeah. So, pretty easy matchup, not much else to say. Illaoi. So Illaoi is really easy for a couple of reasons. First of all, she doesn't have any crowd control, and she relies on her tentacles a lot. Trundle is pretty good at, you know, killing the tentacles, and as long as you can just dodge them and dodge her E, then you will win. And playing against Illaoi is pretty easy, because once you get a couple of kills, it really snowballs, and it will be really difficult for her to play against you after that, as long as you can retain your lead. Then there's Irelia. Irelia is pretty easy. Most of her damage is AD, and you know, you Trundle, you steal AD. So yeah, it's pretty easy. She's also pretty squishy, and yeah, Trundle is very beefy once you get your Trinity Force, and then you can build your plated steel caps too. Yeah, it will be really difficult for the Irelia to kill you. All you need to take care of is that, you know, you dodge her stun, bonus points if you dodge her ultimate, and yeah, she should be a pretty free matchup in most cases. Sometimes the Irelia is really good and, you know, they might slap you, but yeah, in most cases, I feel like Irelia is a pretty good matchup for Trundle. Then we have Set. So the thing with Set is that, first of all, yeah, Trundle steals AD, and Set is all AD damage, except for his W, which is true damage. But anywho's, he's a pretty easy matchup. You just need to auto-attack him, dodge his W, which is very easy. It should be very easy. And yeah, Set, in a lot of cases, I feel like it's a very easy matchup for Trundle. Now, if Set has Ignite and Conqueror, and if they start with W or Q, they might have a chance of beating you level 1. But I feel like if they start level 1 with E, you should be able to kill Set. The matchup is also really snowbally, so if you're able to get a couple of kills on him, and if you're able to keep your lead like that, then you will probably just win the game, as long as your bot lane doesn't feed miserably. But yeah, not much to say about Set. You know, just dodge his W, auto attack him, and I recommend using your ultimate right at the beginning of the fight. Yeah, that's Set for you. Then we have Renekton. So Renekton, I've put him here because in my experiences, he's a pretty easy matchup. As long as you don't let him trade with you as he pleases. Because in an extended fight, where, you know, Trundle is fighting Renekton in 1v1, Trundle should win in most of the cases, especially if you take Ignite, and that is because of Renekton's long cooldowns. His cooldowns are so long that Trundle is just going to get more usage out of his Q and his auto attacks in an extended fight, especially with lethal tempo. It's going to be very easy to fight against Renekton in an all-in. Freezing is also really valuable against Renekton. So yeah, if you manage to get a couple of kills and you set up a freeze, it will be really difficult for the Renekton to play the game at all. Then there's Poppy. I feel like Poppy is a pretty easy matchup. As long as you stay away from walls and make sure that you don't take damage from her Qs, then it should be pretty easy. Yes, she does have her passive, but that will be negated mostly by your sustain. And then once you get ahead, it won't even matter if she uses her passive on you or not. You won't even notice it. Then there is Shyvana. Shyvana is another champion that, in my opinion, is very similar to Trundle. And yeah. Basically, in a nutshell, she is just not that great at the moment in top lane. I wouldn't recommend playing her in top lane. And yeah, it's kind of a farm lane, except that you will just kind of naturally win against her by just existing and farming. So yeah. Then there's also the very easy tier, where I just put Briar, because I don't think there's been a single time I've lost against a Briar top. It's very easy, and Briar, her entire kit is basically just going in, and, you know, once she does that, once she goes in on you, you will just, you know, auto-attack her to death, basically. You have your W and your pillar, and you don't even need to use those to get her to engage. So yeah, should be a very, very easy matchup. I don't think there's a matchup easier than Briar for Trundle in top lane. So yeah. And that's about it for the tier list. Everything that I have said, and if you have any questions about any of the matchups, feel free to ask about them in the comments section below. I will also include some tips and tricks in the description of this video, so yeah. And as I already said and mentioned previously in this video, you can argue about a lot of these champions being in a different tier, being more difficult or being easier, but you know, every game of League of Legends is different, so there's a lot more factors to each game than just the top laner you're playing against. And I cannot include them in this video, even if I wanted to, because there's just so many of them. I just wanted to make this video as a little bit of a guide, I guess, and, you know, point out some of the main things you can do as Trundle and what your mindset should be like when you're playing against each of these champions. I also want you guys to keep in mind that I am only a low diamond, high emerald player, so some of my takes, you know, they might not align with yours. But this is just my opinion. That's everything I have for you, so yeah, have a good one, guys.